Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer with Spark Flash Fiction, and tonight we are interviewing Sharon Hughson, who is the author of The Princess Who Couldn't Fly from our latest issue. And so I want to start out asking Sharon if she doesn't mind letting us know the inspiration behind that unique story that she sent to us.
Hello, Jennifer, and thank you for having me here. And yeah, I was thinking about this. And for me, flash fiction is usually inspired by a line or just a glimpse of an idea. I've been writing it for fun the last couple years. And so I found Spark because you guys actually published that. And so I've been reading yours and enjoying it. And when I saw you were doing a fantasy issue, I was just like, oh, okay. So I set my brain to, okay, think of a good fantasy story. Come on now, you can do this, Sharon. And so one morning I woke up and the first line was in my head. She stepped off the cloud and fell. And I went, ooh, I like that. And I'm like, okay, so who would that be? And then on my brain, I had to start brainstorming it. So that's really where the inspiration came from. Just the first line and if you read the story, that is no longer the first line of the story, but it's in like the second paragraph, I think. So it is still in there. It's just not the first line.
So, you mentioned in your bio for us that you were a writing coach, and you just gave us like a little bit of insight into what your process looks like. So, tell us a little bit more about your writing process and how you got there.
Okay, so it's really trial and error. And that's what I tell the writers I work with. You really have to try stuff. And there's stuff I do now that when someone first recommended to me, I was like, no way, that won't work. It totally worked for me. So you have to push past that resistance that you have to something that you're like, that's not going to work because no, it just doesn't sound right or blah. There's things I do now that totally did not sound right when I started them, but then I went, oh, I can't do it. So I try it and it worked. So for me, I love to brainstorm. That is so fun. And when I get an idea for a story, a lot of times if I really like it, can't let it go, I'll just grab a pencil and pad and just start writing what if, and a lot of possible plot points or whatever. And that lets me know whether or not I have enough information for the length that I want to write. Obviously, you don't need as much if you're writing a flash fiction. You only need one good event. But if you're writing a short story or a novella, which is mostly what I have published as novellas, then you need to have more conflict. So I do that. And then I use Scrivener for my actual drafting and revising part of the process. So then I set it up in Scrivener, the files, and I also use a beat sheet. So I do the 5 major beats in the 3-act structure, or if you've heard it as a 4-act structure, it's really the same thing. And so I figure out those beats, and then I sit down, I figure out my character. My main character, I have to know a little bit about them, right? And then I sit down and I write the first scene. And I actually did that today on the new novel that I'm starting. I write the first scene and then I write the last scene. So that's my plan for tomorrow, is to write the last scene of the book. And then I go back to the first scene and I start writing toward the first plot point that I've got in my beat sheet figured out. So that's my drafting process. And I'm a fast drafter. I can draft most of my novellas I've drafted in 2 or 3 weeks, novels a month. So I am a NaNoWriMo winner multiple times because I can fast draft. And the revising, so stage 3 of the process, the revising, that takes me about twice as long or sometimes 3 times as long as the drafting phase. So since I'm such a fast drafter. And, there's a lot more steps to the revising. I think a lot of writers want to be done. They wrote it and it was awesome. Well, it's not awesome because no one writes an awesome first draft. It needs work. So that's my process in a nutshell.
Well, something I found interesting that you mentioned was about being a fast drafter. And I know my process sped up when someone told me to turn off my inner editor and to just write. And that was some of the best advice that I had ever received. So what's some good advice that you received that you still use to this day?
So this is kind of a hard question because I've received a lot of writing advice, and unfortunately, I think I've received more bad advice than good advice. And there's contradicting advice out there. I mean, from authors you would respect. But the best advice I think I got was about 10 years ago. I met with a local published author who was writing sci-fi fantasy, and I asked him, what tip he would give me as I was starting out. And this was about a year before I even published my first short story in an anthology with the indie author. So pre-published. And he said, write short stories, because it will help you learn to write tight. It will help you learn to write a complete story in the least amount of words. But so to figure out what's important to put in the story. And then when you go to write a novel, you'll have that figured out. You'll know what you need to make a good, complete story. And maybe that's why I still love writing short stories. That's kind of where I go, and why I'm having so much fun writing flash fiction, because I do think that's great advice.
I have to say that I agree, but I might be a little bit biased on this. Now, this author that you asked, did you say this was an author that you like to read his books?
I actually started the series that he was known for, and I liked it, but not enough to keep on reading it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. That
it
makes
was a fantasy sci-fi series, so not necessarily. Usually when you put that sci-fi angle in it, usually I'm not as much a fan of science fiction as I am fantasy. So yeah, I didn't end up reading a lot of his stories, but that first novel was actually started as a short story that he won the whatever the prize is that they give to sci-fi fiction writers. So,
wow.
But then he fleshed it out into an actual novel, actually a 5-book series. So there you go.
That's pretty impressive. That's like one of our authors in this issue, Emily Barnett. I don't know if you follow her on Instagram, but I noticed that she is working on a novel, and she got the idea from the story that she wrote from our issue. And I just thought that was really cool. But speaking of reading books and enjoying books, what is a book you've read recently that you just cannot stop thinking about?
All right. So another hard question, because I'm a voracious reader, and if you are a writer, you should be a reader. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to just read in the genre you write either. You should read widely, because that's it's going to make you a better writer. It really is. So I've met a few writers who are like, I don't have time to read. And I'm like, well, then better go put down your pen and don't bother writing either, because you need to read if you want to be a good writer. But anyway, it's been a few months now, but the book that when I went through my Goodreads reading list to figure out what book would answer this question, and I settled on Landline by Rainbow Rowell, and it's not one of the more recent books of one of her more recent books. I want to say it's 10 years old, maybe. But I love the idea of being able to affect the future by connecting with your past. And so I don't know if you know the landline. She stays at her mom's house, and there's an old phone there, and she's able to call her husband when he wasn't her husband, when they were just dating, for Christmas time, the same season, like however many years ago. And so when he left and took their daughters now for Christmas, it's Christmas again, she's like, he's leaving me. And that time before, she thought they had broke up as well. So it's kind of interesting, because then when she gets there, he's like, that's how it happened for him all along, type of thing. So does that make sense?
That does make sense. That sounds really interesting.
So yeah, it's pretty good. And time travel is one of those things that I find fascinating to read about and watch movies about, but I doubt that I'll ever write it, because it's too complicated to keep things straight. And like, even after I watch a movie or read a book, I'm like, yeah, but would it really have worked that way? Because, well, so, but I do like it when it's done well. So
yeah. Well, you mentioned being a voracious reader, but I would argue that you're also a voracious writer, because you've written like a variety of books. So tell us a little bit about the genres you've written, and what story has just like really stuck with you ever since you wrote it.
Okay, so mostly sweet and Christian romance is where I had most of my novellas were published, in those two genres. I do have a series of historical fiction. It's biblical fictionalizations about 3 actual women in the Bible that I fictionalized their stories. And I think about it, revisit a lot of my stories, including all the ones on my hard drive that have never seen a publisher. But the one that I published, I think about the most, is probably A Pondering Heart. And that is Mary of Nazareth's story. And it was the first book I ever indie published. So there's a lot that goes into that, to indie publish something. And it was really kind of scary. It was like, I've never really publicized the book or ran ads on it or whatever. I really felt it was kind of like a God thing. Like, you should write this book. You should write this book. You should write this book. And so I just played around with it for a long time. And then finally it was like, you should write this book. And so I hired the cover, all the people I needed, and I did it. And so, but I will say that is also, even though I've never publicized or anything, the book of mine that I've gotten the most emails and the most commentary from readers saying that it changed something for them. The way they read the Bible, the way they thought about Mary, the way they thought about reading the Bible, the way they thought about life in the first century. So there you go.
Wow. Now, is this book available on just Amazon, or is it available on other platforms
just
too?
Amazon. I had it wide for a long time, but I wanted to be able to put it on sale when I release the new books. And you can't, Amazon's really picky about that. If you can't put it, you put it in their KDP thing, whatever, if it's wide. So, and I just haven't went back to put it wide. I have all the files, but when you're the indie publisher, it's like, oh, but then I have to do all that.
Gotcha. Okay. So in your bio, I noticed that you mentioned that you love traveling. So where have you been recently? What was it like? Like, give us a little bit of insight.
Okay, I do love traveling. And usually I travel with my husband, but my most recent trip actually happened the first week of August. And my sister and I traveled back to Boston and Providence, Rhode Island to visit our brother. So Boston is an amazing historical city. We spent the day walking the Freedom Trail, or walking part of the Freedom Trail. But it was like 98 degrees and 90% humidity. It was really not the best day to be walking the Freedom Trail. We did go into a lot of places, but I would highly recommend it. I walked much more of the Freedom Trail when my husband and I visited there, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And then we went to Providence, Rhode Island, and they have the most fantastic Capitol building. So that's the capital of Rhode Island, right? Rhode Island's this little dinky state. Their Capitol building has 5 domes. And the center dome is the 4th largest dome in the entire world. Yes, the entire world. So it's pretty amazing. And there's a lot of cool history there because Rhode Island was one of the original colonies and stuff. So there's some story there. And then we took the ferry to Newport, Rhode Island. And that is the Somerville for the rich. Okay. And so they have their cottages there, which are really mansions to the rest of us. And so we toured 3 of these mansions, and they were amazing. But I had to come home right away because there's a series on HBO or Netflix, I don't know where, because I stream too many places, called The Gilded Age. And I had to come home and binge watch that. It only has 1 season, but they are filming another season. But that it is filmed on location at these 3 mansions that we went to. So it was really cool to watch the series and go, oh, that's the room, blah, blah, blah. And and all the kitchen scenes are in this one kitchen that we toured through. And so it's just like, hey, they're in that kitchen that we toured. And so that's really cool and really fun.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a great trip.
That is really cool. Okay. So now I want to know, did you come up with any story ideas while you're there?
I was thinking about this. What if a mansion? Because it's interesting. So many of these mansions, the families don't own them anymore. They've donated them to a historical society. But this one, I think it's the Vanderbilt mansion. The very top floor is still Gloria Vanderbilt has an apartment there that she comes, and she's like the only one left in that line, I guess. I don't know. And she still comes and summers there. So it's pretty interesting. I was going, I wonder if there could be you could have like a romance, right? Here's this gal, she inherits this part of it, blah, 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 and meets some guy who's whatever. I don't know. So anyway, I always get lots of story ideas wherever I go all the time. So,
I mean, if you're writing a Hallmark movie, he would have to be like a handyman or something.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so speaking of romance, though, what is your favorite part? Like, do you like the happily ever after, or the meet cute, or the first kiss? Like, what do you love writing and coming up with?
So it's kind of funny because I was thinking about this, and what I love to write is not the same part that I love to read the most. So it's kind of funny. So for me, I love to read most the almost kiss. I mean, like my heart will be palpitating every time because every good romance they have that almost kiss first where they don't really kiss, and you're just like my heart always is just racing when it's well written, right? But my favorite part to write is the meet cute, and my first ever published short story was in an anthology called The Accidental Valentine, and my meet cute was that my Shiro backed into my hero on his bike, so that is how they met. She was backing out of the parking space. He was going behind her, and whoops, the end. He got hit by her. So he wasn't hurt, but his bike sure was. So that's a fun, meet cute. But yeah, I like trying to come up with something that will be realistic, but fun. Like it could really happen, not unrealistic. So.
Well, is that story available anywhere where readers can read it?
It is not, because that publisher went out of business. So that is no longer, it is not published. And I mean, I have the rights, so I could publish it. And I have several stories from them, but I don't know. I just haven't done the work to, put them back out as indie. So I was thinking, I could actually just put that on my website though. And then I could send people to it. So even if I just put that first scene, because it is pretty priceless.
I can only imagine. So based on this meet cute, what is the trope? Like, is this like an enemies to lover situation where he just like cannot stand her, or?
No, it's not that. It's the trope is he has what she wants. He comes to work for her uncle in this where she works. That's why he's there. She's backing out to do some errands. He's coming up on his bike to interview and gets hit. And so, but in her family's business, the girls are considered what they will do is get married and blah, blah, blah. It's the family business for the boys. And so, which is very not this century, right? But there are still some old timer guys that's how they think.
Yeah.
She wants to be a designer. She wants to be an architect. She works for, it's a building company. Her dad is not in it. It's her uncle that she works for. Her dad's the bookkeeper for it. He's an accountant. So anyway, but yeah, so that's what it is. It's kind of like, so she's like, and he's handsome and whatever, but she's like, wow. So she's always asking him stuff about architecture and all this. And of course he's like, I don't have time. I'm almost graduating. I don't have time for romance. And so it's kind of that. Gotcha. We are attracted to each other, but no. So,
well, Lori says that you could always use it for a reader magnet for your newsletter, since you've already
It could. The problem is that I'm moving more towards writing women's fiction now, and so I'm really trying to write a women's fiction story for my reader magnet. I've had 3 different lead magnets. That never was one of them, but yeah. Right now, it's a kind of a younger, really unlikely people that I've written about. Short story that is my lead magnet for my readers. So,
well, I have to say that was one thing I really liked about your story, where even though there was, this really nice romantic element to it, a lot of the story was focused on the princess and the princess who couldn't fly, and like why she couldn't fly and how it made her feel, and how she was kind of like almost an outcast in her family because she just for some reason couldn't fly. And then at the end, you have that nice little ending there that I don't want to give away to anyone who hasn't read it yet. But I thought you just did a really good job with that story.
Oh, thank you so much. I had a lot of help. I sent it to my critique group, and so it saw a lot of eyes before it came your way. So, and I highly recommend that. Get some good critique partners, beta readers who know what makes a good story to help you improve your writing if you're out there trying to get published the first time. So,
definitely agree. Now, you had mentioned to me before the interview that you had gone live on your YouTube earlier this week. So tell the readers where they can find you on YouTube so they can see some of these videos.
All right. So if you search Write Your Book, it's my YouTube channel is called Write Your Book with Sharon Hughson. That's me. And I have all writing tips, writing advice. That's what my channel is all about, since I am a writing coach. And so, yep, earlier this week was a live question and answer about the intensive that I'm running right now. It's called Write Your Book in 90 Days with me. And so that's why I started a new novel, because I'm writing my book at the same time that the people in the intensive are writing it. So we're writing our books together.
Cool. Okay, so before we go, because we're almost out of time, but I'm going to put you on the spot, Sharon, so I
Uh-oh.
hope you forgive me. But what is something that you would love to tell a beginning writer who maybe is like a little bit discouraged or it seems a little bit too hard and they can't break into the industry? What is some advice that you would love to give them?
Write what you love and don't worry so much about being published. The thing is that when I got published, I thought, oh, it's going to change everything. And it did, but not for the better, unfortunately. So I still want to have that joy for writing. And so for me, it's like, if you love writing, write because you love it. Write the stories you love, write the things that interest you. And eventually you'll write enough that you'll know what you'll have that's going to be marketable. Everything you write doesn't have to be for sale. Everything you write doesn't have to be marketable. So that's the advice I would give. Don't lose your love of writing so you can be published.
That's really good advice. Thank you, Sharon. So y'all, don't forget to go to our issue to check out Sharon's story, The Princess Who Couldn't Fly. Like I said earlier, it's a really good story and you don't want to miss it. Also, go check out her website, go check out her YouTube. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you can always pop over to like her Instagram or her Facebook and shoot her a message. But don't forget to follow because we all like follows. They make us feel good and they make us feel connected. So I hope that y'all have a fantastic night and a fantastic weekend. And thank you once again, Sharon, for joining us. This was such a joy. I had so much fun talking to you. And before we go though, Lori said that she really enjoyed that story too. Lori is one of
Love to
our.
hear
Isn't that always nice to hear when someone's like, "I loved your story"? Makes you feel good. So thank you, Lori. Lori has written for us a few times. So I always get excited when she's bragging on other people because the community that y'all form with each other. I always know that's just so fantastic seeing y'all compliment each other. I love that about you guys. Y'all are so fantastic. But anyways, so thank you, Sharon. And I hope you have a great weekend too. And good luck on your new novel that you're writing in your 90-day intensive. And I can't wait to see your name in print somewhere else again.
Thank you. It was great being here.
All right. Good night, y'all.